Hello, my friends. So now we have put the matrix to sleep, if you watched my video from yesterday. And now what? We still have a lot of that energy, all stuck in our body, and it's not so easy to just pull out of it. It's not something you just do overnight. If it happens, it's because it is given to us. It's by grace, it's a gift. And but even with that, because I had one of those many years ago, I think it was in 88 or 89, 88 or maybe. And and then I still had to do the work. It was not all, you know, happy ending. It was actually a very intense time I went through. But there was a lot more matrix energy. We weren't really aware of what we are aware of now. So there is something about, how do we make that leap from the old, okay, you're put to rest, here we are. The tendency is to keep being pulled back because it's just habit. Our whole brain, our whole neural pathways are wired that way. So unless we're very, very conscious, we will still experience that. It's could be compared with a chicken which the head is cut off and it just keeps on running even though it's dead. It's kind of like that. So it just has its own momentum still. And it will stop at some point. It has to. It simply has to because the new is coming out and it's so different than the old. But in order to make it easier on ourselves and maybe to speed up the process, we can definitely do some things. And I do them because I don't want to keep being pulled back in. And even though I'm not being pulled in a lot of the time, I can still feel the energy in my body as like something familiar. So I would say it's a slow death, and we just need to keep chopping away at it. But what I want to share is that when I had my big spiritual awakening in the late 80s, I think it was in 87, um, and that was one of those grace gifts, it was just given to me. I was just sitting down to meditate. I had never really meditated before. I was just learning, and then everything opened up. And all that was basically there after that huge download of energy, whatever I can call it, where it was just pure love, and pure gratitude. They're kind of the same thing in my experience back then. So when that started settling a little bit, it was still very vibrantly alive. Then I literally only experienced love. There was just love. I remember I was holding myself energetically in love. It was just happening. I wasn't thinking about, oh, I have to love myself. There was just love and love for other people. There was just acceptance and love. And boy, was that amazing. And of course, there is a part of me that is waiting for that to happen again because it is our natural state. So it has to happen. But what I learned from that is that there basically only is love in our true state. In the matrix, is there love? I think there is love based on dualistic love. I love you and then you love me back. Or there's also pure love, of course, for nature, for animals, for our children, our best friends, our spouses. It is there, but when it's taken away or when something happens, that love changes. It kind of diminishes or goes away. And that's where a lot of relationships end because we're still identified with the matrix, which is the state where we are separated from our true state, true self. So there is something missing there. And what is missing, or at least one of the things that is missing, is just the purity of the love that we already are. We're just not engaging with it. So that's why when I became a self-love mentor many years ago, I didn't really understand it all. But just like when I do my YouTubes here, I don't always know what's going to come out. There's a sense of something. There might be, like yesterday, there was an image of a tombstone and with rest in peace for the Matrix. And then today there is a sense of like that, how important it is to bring love to the parts in ourselves that are identified with the Matrix, that we actually can consciously bring love to that. And what I was saying is, and I don't know how it's going to come out, and I still don't know, because I'm not going up here for information about my YouTubes. I just feel that, I sense into the field, I sense into just my beingness, and then something is there, and then I kind of open my mouth to see what comes out. So the whole point about self-love, I mean, it is much, much, much more important than I knew back when I started talking about this. I didn't know a lot about it, but the more I talked about it and wrote about it and helped my clients connect with that, there's just more and more clarity. So today I want to share the part, like when we do bring love to our unloved parts, the unloved parts, they are still identified with the Matrix, because there is no true love in the Matrix. And that's why we don't experience true love for ourselves or for others. Of course, with a lot of exceptions, but generally. So when we start bringing love to our own unloved parts, we become more whole in what we already are. We are not adding something to what we already are, but we are stopping to detract something from who we already are, which is like, oh no, you're not going to get my love. Absolutely not. You're not perfect, and you're this or that. And that's where we have that split. And that split is what keeps the Matrix, has been keeping the Matrix happening. And right now there's a lot of shifting in the world. So it doesn't look like love is coming in, but we are the ones who can bring in that love to the parts that we have identified as separate from God, that the parts that we have identified with the Matrix. So it's almost like, so we're leaving the Matrix, the old paradigm, the Matrix, and it's kind of like making a leap to end in the new paradigm. But they're not really separate. They're not really apart. I'm just using this as an illustration. But in order to get from here to here, if this one, which is love, if we just keep pouring love over there, then that sense of separation gets smaller and smaller until it doesn't really exist anymore. And then we realize, like, oh, what, that was really nothing. It was just because I wasn't loving it all. And then there's a wholeness that we experience. I know so many, many, many people who just talk about, we just need to love. We need to bring love back. We just need to love. I want to just love. It's like almost everybody I talk to, I think we all feel that this is the solution. Love is the solution. So since the Matrix energy is dwindling and disappearing, we have more access to love, because this is the one that pulled us out of love. But now that this is not so strong, we're more able to stay with the love that we are. And then this is just dropping away more and more. That's why we bid it farewell yesterday. And that is a conscious act we can do. We can just say, thank you very much. Bye-bye. Not see you later. You're complete. So that energy is disappearing, and this one becomes a lot more available, a lot more obvious, a lot more attractive and enjoyable. It won't have all that fear, excitement that we were so attached to and addicted to. That does not exist here. So if you still are attached to that and want that experience of the adrenaline rush, you know, go and do it if that's what you want, but you're missing out on the new earth that is coming in. And we are, all of us, we are the cells, if we can use that. We are little cells who are here now to shine our light, to to love every part of ourselves, to love, you know, our friends and our family. Now, a little in between here, it's sometimes it's very hard. Most of the time, it's very hard to just love people who are not loving, who are being mean to us. So again, we're not bypassing, but what we are doing is we are giving love to the part in here that is not being loved by the outside. So it's all an internal job that we all have to take. It's a path or a journey we all have to take in order to make it from the seeming old paradigm to the seeming new paradigm, and realize that it was actually all just love, but it was because it all went through this dualistic mind, which is separate. There's like good and bad and love and lack of love. So when we leave that little mind behind to the best of our ability, one step at a time, and also loving the part that has a hard time letting it go because it's so identified with it, right? Most people are totally identified with their mind, and it's very scary to let it go. It's like, oh, how am I going to survive? What's going to happen? And again, it's a process. For me, it's been a process, and kind of ended up like, I don't really care. I know this is all just an illusion. If I die, I die. And, if something scary happens to me, I might try and, survive. I don't know. But at this point, I just feel like I'd much rather just rest in the peace and the love than be afraid of dying or something. What's going to happen if I don't hold on to the matrix? Well, let's find out. That's the best answer I can give. And but it is a process. Always be very loving and gentle with yourself, because when you are loving and gentle with yourself, you are tuned into the new paradigm, and you're making yourself an outlet for it, because it's pure love. So when you're letting yourself be pure love and give pure love to the parts of you that are still scared, and that's because they're not identified with the pure love that they are yet, you know, do it consciously. And if you need help with that, that is kind of my thing. I call myself a self-love mentor because that was something that was revealed to me many years ago. Over time, I had the big awakening, and then it took me many years to kind of figure out what had happened and why it went away and why it was so intense for 5 months, where kind of my life was taken over by somebody. It was very scary. And then I had to really work through this. And then I realized, oh my God, it's because I'm not loving myself. So that's been my journey. And that's, of course, why I share it with anybody who may resonate with that. So if you need help with that, please reach out. That's what I'm here for. And we can set up a self-discovery session, and we can explore and see what kind of support you would need. But in the meantime, feel free to practice it to the best of your ability. We're moving from the old, which is basically put under the ground. The energy is still here, and we are still identified with the energy. It's almost like there's, it's a perfume or something. There's still an odor left, maybe not perfume, but there's still kind of a nasty odor left. And that's why the world is completely mad right now. So just start pulling back and do not engage here as much as possible. And if you find yourself, you've been engaging for a while, just pause, take a breath. Don't get upset with yourself, because then you're right back in there, just like, oh, that's right. I don't want to do that anymore. So then you just take some space and then you start tuning into what you do want. And that's, of course, the longing that I always talk about. All right, my friends, that's the step from the tombstone into the new energy. And what we do, we just we spice it up with love. And then that gap is going to diminish and diminish until there's only love left in our experience. Okay, thank you.